Qin Feng carefully thought it over and realized that he had actually resigned from his job in advance to ensure he could train after awakening. He just hadn't told Zhou Hao about it. Both Qin Feng and Chen Ming were orphans, with Chen Ming's parents perishing during a beast surge at their settlement. Each month, they received 500 hero orphan subsidies. Qin Feng, however, had no idea who his parents were. He was abandoned outside the orphanage door as an infant. Because newborns held hope for humanity, humans could only receive their awakening agents at 16, making the care of orphans a top priority for the current Chinese alliance. But orphans couldn't afford to strengthen themselves financially. Qin Feng had no choice but to go out and work to earn money. Thus, he didn't need any other excuse to leave Zhou Hao behind. "Need to inform the manager over there," Qin Feng said as he waved goodbye and chose another path. Zhou Hao watched Qin Feng's back. He felt his friend had grown more mature and steady. It was like Qin Feng had suddenly matured overnight. Indeed, after going through today's awakening injection, the rifts and juvenile beasts' attacks, how could one not grow? Qin Feng didn't know Zhou Hao's thoughts but would have chuckled if he did. He had experienced 10 years of trials, not just a single day. Once he was sure Zhou Hao wasn't following him, Qin Feng slowed his pace. The Chengyang City Northern New District settlement was where he was born. It wasn't part of the city center but in the outskirts, and even though it seemed well connected with buildings everywhere, its harsh living conditions couldn't be hidden. There was insufficient land, and surrounding areas were constantly under threat from beast packs. Far from the main city, defenses were weak. The strongest were only E-level ability users. Even their spatial stabilizers were outdated. After Qin Feng had been taken away, he hadn't returned to Chengyang City, so his memory of this place was somewhat hazy. He walked 3 streets before finding a shop that caught his eye, a store specializing in combat gear for outdoor use. The shop was large by the settlement standards. Moreover, it belonged to the Wanzhong Group, a major corporation. A woman in her 30s sat behind the counter and sized up Qin Feng with a disapproving frown upon seeing him in such a state. "Little son, take care of this customer. Don't forget to sweep the floor later." "Yes, manager." The named Xiao Sun approached Qin Feng immediately, clearly thinking that Qin Feng had dirtied their clean store. Qin Feng gave him a cold look. It had been so long since anyone dared treat him with such disrespect. Qin Feng didn't bother arguing. He was just starting over and had much to do. A woman like Xiao Sun wasn't worth his time. "Sir, are you here to buy or sell?" Xiao Sun hurried forward, polite but puzzled. Qin Feng, covered in wounds, might have returned from a fight, but he held no war spoils. This didn't match the profile of a material seller, but buying ability. An ordinary person like him couldn't afford their store's items. Xiao Sun's suspicions were confirmed. This woman was indeed shrewd. "Will you take these?" Qin Feng pulled out 4 G-level enhancement agents from his pocket. These small, pale red tubes bore official seals that could be verified instantly. Though the store didn't deal in drugs, G-level enhancement agents were essential. He knew they were genuine at first glance. He hadn't expected such a big business. Sure. Xiao Sun took the enhancement agents and tested them cautiously before saying, "We buy at 80% of market value. 4 bottles are worth 32,000. This transaction would net him 300 as commission. A windfall. Qin Feng nodded and scanned the store's offerings. 1 set of T3 combat suit, a dagger, 30 crossbow bolts, an assault backpack, and camping gear. With few strong individuals in the settlement, most were ordinary people who wouldn't choose high-quality T3 combat suits. "All right, sir. What size do you need?" "Size 170. Qin Feng looked at his slender frame and couldn't help but chuckle. He was now only 1.73 meters tall and very thin. He had changed a lot since his rebirth. He needed to improve his physical condition soon. "All right." Xiao Sun began bustling, giving Qin Feng the T3 combat suit to try on before showing him other items. Qin Feng picked carefully, buying what was necessary and declining Xiao Sun's sales pitches. He ended up spending 30,000 but kept only 2,000 in his backpack. Customer, if you come back next time, I can offer a discount for regulars. Transactions over 10,000 get a cut. Here's my contact info, add me, Zio-sun said hurriedly. Qin Feng nodded without hesitation. Having someone familiar handle things would be helpful. He asked Zio-sun's real name and added him to his contacts list. His contact list was sparse, with only about 30 people mostly from school. With that done, Qin Feng turned off his communicator, put on the T3 combat suit, inserted the dagger, and attached the crossbow bolts before leaving the store. Walking down the street, Qin Feng felt many eyes on him. The combat suit stood out compared to regular clothes. In June's heat, its material was water and fire resistant, maintaining a comfortable temperature even when fully covered. The gray-green camouflage made it blend into nature, but this color also set Qin Feng apart from others. His youthful face was calm, his eyes sharp. The crossbow bolts on his waist, the dagger on his boots, and hidden crossbow bolts in his backpack all symbolized both power and wealth. Qin Feng ignored the gazes of passers-by as he hailed a taxi and said, "Take me to the outdoor pickup point." The driver looked curiously at Qin Feng, but kept quiet when Qin Feng remained silent. They arrived at the settlement's outdoor pickup point. Due to spatial rifts, the area outside was perilous, yet some had to venture out for hunting and protection duties, necessitating this pickup point. Here, Qin Feng in his combat suit didn't stand out. Everyone else wore similar gear. Qin Feng stepped onto a field vehicle, and an enchanting female voice played in his ears. Today's field trip will pass through Zishan, Jiagugu Gorge, King Bay, Yuanyang Site, and Changnan Gathering Point. All combatants take note. Chinese letter, 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 Chai. Inside the vehicle, the voice from the automated player brought a sense of nostalgia to Qin Feng. How many years had it been since he last rode such a simple collective field vehicle? The outdoors were perilous. Cracks appeared at any moment, and waves of invasive creatures had already transformed Earth into a more hospitable habitat for them. To protect the safety of the gathering points, leaders had to offer incentives to encourage people to venture out. There were 20 or so passengers on this vehicle, all traveling in groups, but since they didn't know each other, Qin Feng was mistaken for someone else's team, and no one paid him much attention. The vehicle stopped at various stations. Some disembarked while others boarded. By the time it reached King Hebei, Qin Feng stood by the door, along with another group that had also risen to their feet. Initially, he hadn't noticed anything out of the ordinary on the vehicle, but once they stepped off, Qin Feng became conspicuous. "Why are you alone? The outdoors are dangerous. Why don't you join us?" A bright-faced girl with a delicate appearance pleaded as she saw Qin Feng standing alone in the group. "Yao Yao," a male voice quickly intervened, his eyes wary. "This person came out on their own. They must have some skill. Maybe they don't want to travel with us." The named Yao Yao immediately countered, "That's why I invited him. I thought he was impressive." But Li Yao Yao seemed hesitant. "Yao Yao, you can't be sure if he's skilled or not. What if he slows us down?" Another male voice chimed in. Still, Yao Yao didn't seem convinced by the two. "Yao Yao, forget it, that person has already left." Another girl tugged on Yao Yao's wrist. "You're too kind-hearted. He doesn't care." They only realized Qin Feng had walked 20 meters away and disappeared into a vast reed marsh when they were in heated debate. This man, Qin Feng, was unaware of their thoughts, nor did he have the habit of talking to strangers. Sometimes, encountering fellow combatants out here could be more dangerous than within the gathering points. He felt his current strength was too low and didn't want to engage with others. Moreover, Qin Feng had a specific task that he preferred not to share with anyone. He moved swiftly through the reeds, careful not to make any noise. The edges of the reeds were sharp but soft enough to navigate without being cut. His combat suit provided sufficient protection against such hazards. It was like a bamboo forest. The reeds concealed his body and also masked the warnings of danger. Glub! A faint frog call echoed. Qin Feng narrowed his eyes, locking onto a direction. In an instant, a green figure shot out from the reed marsh, moving with incredible speed. Qin Feng's crossbow was already loaded with an arrow, which he aimed slightly differently before pulling the trigger. Swoosh! The low-pitched sound of the arrow pierced through the air and struck the green figure. Puff! The arrow pierced the head, spraying blood and a yellowish substance onto the reeds. At that moment the green figure fell to the ground, revealing its true form. A half-human-sized green-skinned monster, resembling an oversized frog with powerful hind legs capable of standing upright. This was the notorious reed killer, frogmen. Such creatures had been on the Gathering Point's bounty list in the bus earlier. Qin Feng approached and drew a dagger, quickly gouging out one of the frogman's eyes. Although the frogman's flesh tasted good, Qin Feng had more important matters to attend to. He couldn't carry too much, and the frogman's blood might attract other creatures. He placed the frogman's eyeballs in a sealed container, feeling his strength surge as he absorbed its energy. Much faster than my previous life. This is the complete ability, right? There may be stronger ones I haven't tapped into yet. Qin Feng felt his body's strength gradually increase and couldn't help but feel excited. He continued forward, the reeds becoming denser while the frog calls grew louder. Goo goo goo, a dense chorus of croaks filled the air. Qin Feng halted abruptly as arrows shot out. Swoosh, swoosh. 2 arrows pierced through the vast reed gaps and hit 2 entangled frogmen at the front and back of the marsh. It was now gradually approaching summer, a breeding season for the frogmen. If left unchecked, their numbers would explode during this period, forcing them to leave their nests and disperse, posing a significant threat to the gathering points. This was why the announcement on the bus had been issued. Qin Feng continued his journey, absorbing energy from 2 more frogmen as he passed by. He felt his strength increase dramatically in an incredibly satisfying way, something he hadn't experienced for many years. After all, it had been a long time since he had advanced. Since injecting the awakening potion, Qin Feng was now an ability user, but his abilities focused on enhancing his physical body. Thus, he displayed the strength of an ancient martial artist. By current standards, Qin Feng was undoubtedly at the G1 level in ancient martial arts. After gouging out another frogman's eye, Qin Feng continued with firm steps. 3 hours later, the sound of water grew louder, and he reached what was truly King Bay. However, even here, danger lurked. The underwater predators, man-eating fish and crocodiles, made it a forbidden zone. It was precisely because of this that the Northern Gathering Point had no idea about the Hidden Z Organization underground laboratory in this area. Perhaps this was the proverbial blindness in one's own home. Qin Feng came here not for revenge, but to seek an ally. His current strength still needed improvement. However, he chose this place because it held a potential source of assistance that he believed could be beneficial. He donned his oxygen tank and swimming goggles, which he had bought from the equipment store. Plunk! Qin Feng jumped into the water.